Absolutely. So I saw a quick question here. Yeah? Zinat? Yeah. Mike, just one second.
Thank you, Marilyn. I had a quick question for you in regards to the trust index, just kind of taking it 3 steps forward. How do you see it integrated as a product? Is it on the onus? Oh.
Do you have another mic, please?
Oh, yeah, of course. I just wanted to see how you saw the trust index as a product that's used, whether you're going to push it onto the media to have it verified prior to the journalist articles being pushed out, or is it for us consumers to have models in place that as we read through material, it kind of pops up a trust index so we have an understanding of the verification
Marilyn,
of these
if you may, we will take another question and then we will answer, okay? So I will just give the space for another one question from the floor,
yeah,
and then we'll...
Hello.
Okay,
David
we'll
Mehta, Career Management Services Director. It takes 2 to tango. So if we are doing a lot to really combat deep fakes and fake news, on the other side, there is the desirability of fake news, and some of them are really harmless, like, for example, entertainment and education. But some of them could be more pernicious, like, for example, the confirmation bias. People are looking for information that confirms their biases. So is there anything done in this regard to see whether there is more awareness being put on the people to value truth and value information that does not confirm their biases?
Sure, thank you. Is it addressed to any particular speaker?
Not really, but I think I was inspired by the 3 of them talking about the same subject.
Thank you. So last question, yeah?
Jean Audia, Audi Communications. Marilyn, I'm just wondering, you mentioned COVID-19 several times. While obviously there was a lot of fake news running around during the crisis, post-crisis, now that we look back, there's been a lot of credible information showing that a lot of the concerns with the vaccines and other lockdown measures were actually warranted. So do you think that there's actually a bit of merit to differentiating between fake news and basically dissent towards official narratives, for example?
Okay, thank you. So 2 questions for you, Marilyn, and maybe, I don't know, Lama, would you venture for the answer for David? Okay, yeah. Mike, yeah, go ahead.
All right, so...
would you like to come here? Maybe it's better to be on stage. Lama.
Okay, so I think the first question was about whether the trust index was going to, just trying to repeat so I make sure I understood, whether the trust index was going to be a tool for the consumers, apart from just being for publishers, so they can check their content before consumption. Yeah, so the idea is for it to be a platform. So imagine going on a platform to actually verify. We do have some existing platforms for actually fact-checking, but this is going to be in a way that both the consumers and the publishers would be able to benefit from such a platform. So for the consumers, they can rank, they can benchmark whatever news they want to consume. They can come on there to verify the publishers that these publishers are credible. Remember, we're trying to tackle it from the source, from where the fake news is coming from. So that is the concept for consumers. And then to the question about COVID-19, there's this saying that sometimes when there's a truth in a rumor, some sense of truth in a rumor, but we also know, there is a mixed bag, because sometimes, and this is where the idea of tackling things from the source, where it's coming from, because when, for example, a typical example is when a publisher publishes a news and let's say the one that I showed earlier about a fake news, and you can make reference to other publishers that have also published such fake news, or of such a news as well. That becomes, there are so many ways to measure whether there is bias, there are some nuances in the language, and that's why we want to have a benchmark, like a trust benchmark, or a way to really check what is being published, maybe checking that against the entire information ecosystem, because if, let's say, the source is coming from is not reliable, that already brings it to question, and it's something that can be investigated as to whether the source is credible enough to relay such information, because we live in a world where almost content can come from anywhere, and it can be for defamation and for different purposes. So it's just to make sure we're addressing it from the source, from where the information is originating from, and that it's credible enough. I know that it's really a complex thing, because the information ecosystem as well can, apart from the publishers, the mainstream publishers, you also have publishers who might not be mainstream. Let's say they're not in the news or the media. So this is one way we're tackling it, and it might not be the representative of the entire, for example, the entire information ecosystem. And yeah, this is something developing, and like I said, trust is a complex thing to map out, but yeah, it's something that you would have to consider apart from the mainstream publishers. What about publications that are coming from sources that are not, for example, not news articles, for example, they are not the CNN and the BBC and so forth. So, but it is just a way to also empower consumers on how to gauge the information that they receive from the sources that it's coming from. Yeah, but it might not be the solution to everything, and I acknowledge that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Lama, a very quick response.
Yeah, so I think there are two parts to this question, right? I mean, there are very good usages of deepfakes, and that's, to me, it's really a question of provenance and people understanding the source of these deepfakes and for what purpose. So that's not to say that all deepfakes, are an issue. On the second part of the question, though, which I think is really the most critical part, is how do we empower humans to make sense out of all of this information and disinformation that's out there? And I think part of what I see as a really interesting area of research that we're actually looking at is how do you improve the explainability of these systems so that you can empower people to be much more critical thinkers about this input, right? And thinking about the human AI complementarity in some sense, and that's actually what we've seen in some of the original research that we have done in this space, is people index on things that are very different than what machines tend to index on, and at the end of the day, you really need to think of it as a human AI collaborative system because you're trying to empower people to be critical thinkers. On that note that you mentioned, actually, I think there is another thing at play here, which is really about the polarization in the world, right? And I think that's what was at play with a lot of the scientific information that was coming out, because people were trying to overcorrect for what we have seen as disinformation around vaccines and things like that. And I think today, in this world, we don't have the capability to have a conversation across these two polar opposites. And I think that's essentially the problem.
From a communication perspective, I was essentially expecting everyone to believe the mainstream media, which was receiving official narratives from official entities, while clearly in retrospect now, have there been any studies done on, for example, the mRNA vaccine and how much deaths from myocarditis or anything else that has done? Everyone who questioned anything was considered a COVID-idiot.
100%.
And essentially people lost trust. If you're talking trust levels, basically, the mainstream media, specifically because of COVID, has lost a ton of
100%,
trustworthiness.
100%. And I think, but that's what I'm saying. It's like there's misinformation, but the issue there is about polarization. You can't have a debate
But
anymore.
you need to allow a debate. That's the
100%.
thing. Because if you don't,
absolutely need to.
Yeah.
So that's why we're going to try to use what remains from the break to have the debate, right? So feel free. Our speakers are going to be around for the whole day. We have a long day. So we have to really try to maintain the time. We're going to be using here a bit space to prepare for the panel. We start 11:30, so grab some refreshment, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.